Hello and welcome to today's module on the art of personal branding in AI. Now, first of all, why should you give a hoot about building a personal brand? Well, the truth is that as we move into this digital era of content creation, social media, and AI-generated content, having your own personal brand is going to help set you apart to actually find clients. Now, I cannot stress enough that personal branding doesn't mean becoming famous. It means being found. So inside of this module today, we're going to teach you how you can get found by the right people so that you can actually start attracting the right kind of clients. Now, whenever I create a piece of content for social, everything that I'm making is with one purpose and one purpose only: for these videos to be shown to the right people. Okay, and so building your personal brand is really about the way that you kind of format and the way that you think about your videos and like all of the projects that you take on. Personal branding is kind of like everything in terms of encompassing your business. You know, what projects you take on, how you orientate yourself in business, what you put out publicly. Honestly, there is so much to cover in this module that this is probably going to be one of the longest modules that we've ever covered on the platform and one of the most important. So I'm going to dive into why you need a personal brand in the AI space. And the truth is, AI has leveled the playing field. It's leveled the playing field for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of creatives. So if that's the case, how on earth are we going to stand out? Well, credibility now comes from sharing knowledge and not job titles. In the past, people would look at job titles and they would say, that guy is the senior director at da-da-da-da-da. That's really impressive. I'm going to listen to him because he's got credibility. Nowadays, there's been a shift. If you have a strong personal brand, even if it's like not the biggest, right? But you have a really solid grasp of your niche, your local area, people will understand you and they'll resonate with your personal brand, and that will help get you more clients. You're right. If you picture this on like a small scale, if you've built a really trusted brand around yourself and a trusted kind of ethos in the way that you do business in your local area, you're going to get recommended to other people in the area, and you will eventually become the guy who does X job in your area. Now, when you apply this to a macro, a huge scale, right? If we take the entire creative AI industry as a whole, if you can be seen as an educator, right, as opposed to just a practitioner, you are going to set yourself apart. I'm going to tell you a story about a personal experience as to why I even started this page, this Rourke Heath page to begin with. Because there's a lot of lessons to be learned here, and I really, really want to share this. So all of this is coming straight from the heart, straight from passion, by the way. So when I first started this page, it was Christmas time 2 years ago, right? And I went to a Christmas gathering with family, friends, and my cousin, right, who is very big on Instagram as well. He educates people on UX, UI design. He has a page with about 700,000 followers. He has a really successful business called Memorizely, where he teaches people how to do UX, UI design. I went to his house around Christmas time, and I was working at a creative agency in London at the time, and he gave me this golden nugget of the sentence that completely changed my life. And it makes me genuinely emotional right now just talking about it. But he said to me, and this, just hear me out. He said, if you were in a position where you had to hire between two people, and candidate A was a practitioner, somebody who, let's say it was for a video editing role. We had someone here, person A, who had 4 years of video editing experience, right? And that's all that they had, and they, worked at businesses X, Y, and Z. And then you have candidate B, who has the exact same years of experience, but they are an educator in this space. They teach people how to do the skills, right? As well as being a practitioner. Well, who are you going to pick, right? Who is more employable in this situation? And I said, well, obviously, person B, because I would rather hire someone who's an educator because, one, they can scale my own team internally if I end up building my own team. And two, they sound like, if they're an educator, that they would probably be a great manager as well. There's a lot of skills that you take from being an educator to actually being a manager too. So this really stuck with me. And the educator, all that they really have over candidate A is a personal brand. They have got a personal brand that is, telling people, I teach people in this space because I'm credible, right? I have the knowledge. I can not only execute, but I can educate as well, right? And being able to hold both of those skills is really, really important, okay? So when I say credibility now comes from sharing knowledge and not titles, like job titles, trust is everything right now. In a world where we have so much uncertainty in the future of what it looks like, people are going to turn to people they trust, right? So being able to build that trust with either a small audience of highly trusted individuals will net you a massive, massive return. Then just like going and fulfilling work for clients, right? You can do the work for clients and you can make, fine money. But if you can teach people how to do these skills as well as executing, you are then going to be putting yourself in a really advantageous position. Now, at the bottom of all of these slides, I have some questions that I want you to ask yourself as we go through. Okay, some of them I'm going to read out to you because it's going to, first of all, prompt me to kind of evoke some kind of discussion between us. But I really want you to read these questions that are at the bottom of these pages. So, why do you want to build a personal brand? Is it recognition, right? In your industry? Is it freedom in terms of creative freedom, financial freedom? Is it opportunities? Are you looking for opportunities or are you looking for influence? You really need to be asking yourself all of these questions. For some people, it's all of the above, right? And this kind of will help guide you on your journey of where you take your personal brand. Pick a category that's important to you, or pick multiple categories, and pick them now as you see them right here, and keep those in the back of your head as we go through this module. And think to yourself, okay, how can I now start creating content that's going to get me more recognition? How can I start creating content moving forwards and take on projects that's going to give me more freedom? How can I start taking on projects that are going to start giving me more opportunity? Or how can I start creating content like spec adverts that I'm going to start putting out on LinkedIn that will get me more opportunities? Or how can I create the most viral piece of content so that I can have more influence? Okay? Think about these as we go through this. Now, the first step to building your own personal brand is defining your why. Every brand starts with a purpose and not a logo, right? So you need to sit down now and figure out what is the reason you want to share what you know, right? And you might not know much about this AI space right now, and that's why you're here, okay? I'm going to give you some advice now that if you are to actually implement this today, your life will change in 365 days. And this theme will come up consistently throughout this module. If you start taking, right, and learning one new skill, one tiny, tiny new skill inside of GenHQ, you watch for 20 minutes a day, just 20 minutes, right? And you learn from 10 minutes or 20 minutes, one new skill. If you can take that skill, right, and you can then package that into a 30-second piece of bite-sized education that you can then provide to your audience, people who follow you on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever it may be, then that is a fantastic place to start. If you don't want to, use your own personal pages that you have right now, start a new one. Start a new one today, right? Learn something from today, a skill that you can teach someone in creative AI. Maybe it's 11 Labs. How you can create your own custom voices in 11 Labs. Take that. Watch the 11 Labs module, take a skill from that, right? Make some notes, then teach that in 30 seconds. Make that piece of content, post that, and share that value with someone else, right? If you can do that every single day for, 30 days, let's just start with a small target. Your life will compound and change every single day. you will learn a new skill, you will force yourself to learn new skills, and then you will also be building your personal brand at the same time. You're going to become more trusted in your space. Your content will be seen by other people in your local area, your friends, your colleagues in the industry. They'll reach out to you. They'll say, hey, I want to learn how to do more of what you're doing. This looks amazing, right? And if you can do that, you're going to attract more work, right? And you're going to attract more clients. Everything will start to compound. And this really comes from building your personal brand. So, education. Education-driven brands often grow fastest. People trust teachers over talkers. And it's true. I could yap all day, but if I wasn't providing you with any value at the end of it, would you come back and listen to me? Probably not. The reason why you're here right now is most likely because you've seen some of my content on socials, right? That is like the first thing that you've seen. And over time of me showing up every day on socials, you have installed your trust in me to actually deliver education to you. And people trust teachers, not talkers. So when you are educating people, you need to be respectful of their time. You need to, and these are all really important lessons, by the way, for building personal brand. You have to respect other people's time. No one has time to listen to fluff. No bullshit. No wasted, adding in pointless sentences that, don't make sense. Cut the information down to the most bite-sized, educational piece that you can. If you think there's a sentence in there that doesn't need to be in there when you're creating content, don't include it. Ask yourself, why am I creating this content? What pillar does it come back to, right, that we have in that first slide? And also, when it comes to determining your why will determine how you show up, what you teach, and who you attract, okay? So if you want to be attracting a specific client, you need to be educating people on how you do the work for that client. Because if a client sees you educating on that piece of work and they have either one candidate that they're going to pick from or a candidate, so let's run a hypothetical situation here, sorry. So we have candidate A and candidate B. You are candidate B in this situation. They are picking between who do we go for? The guy who charges $2,000, candidate A, but they are not an educator. Or B, candidate B, who charges $2,750, but they're also an educator in this space. And when I go to their profile, I can not only see the work that they do, but I can also see how they're doing it, right? I am going to trust as the client, person B, 10 times more than person A. So I'm going to pay that extra $750 because I trust that brand and I trust that person's personal brand. Right? So you see how personal brand really plays a massive part in not only like finding the right clients, but also securing the right clients. It's who you attract that's important. So this is my principle that I kind of used myself, and it's learn, then teach immediately. A powerful personal brand doesn't wait until mastery, it builds through the process of learning. Now, let me break this down for you into my personal experiences, because this kind of quote means a lot to me. Because when I first started doing all of this education, right, I actually started as a Photoshop educator, and I knew, mind my French, fuck all. I knew absolutely nothing about Photoshop when I actually started educating people on it. But all I did was I would go on YouTube, I would look up Photoshop tutorials, I would learn that skill in 10 minutes, and I would then take that education and that learning, and I would try to show people how to do that skill in 30 seconds. Because people on YouTube wasted my time. They would spend way too long teaching me how to do something. So I would take that complex thing and I would break it down into a quick bite-sized tutorial. And if you can do that, you're going to become a more effective educator in the process, because you're going to be taking complex videos and breaking them down into very basic and simple things for everyone to understand. So if you can do that in the AI space, it's going to help provide you with credibility. All of the top creative AI people in this niche, I'm going to call out Rory Flynn here. Rory Flynn is one of the best educators in the world, if not the best, at creative AI education. He has a LinkedIn page with 100,000 plus followers, and he posts his workflow videos. He works with Meta, doing internal education for their team on creative AI. I think he's a consultant for many, many Fortune 500 companies and is one of the most talented AI creatives and educators. Why? Because he takes complex things and he breaks them down in a really nice format. But you don't need to be a professional at this to get started. Always start before you're ready, okay? So when it comes to learning these skills, literally learn it on the spot and then teach that skill immediately. I recommend doing this so highly because if you can do that, you're not only going to be learning the skill yourself, but then you're going to be teaching other people how to do it. But when you teach someone else how to do it, you're actually inherently at the same time reinforcing that education that you've learned from that video into your own brain. So you're like learning a skill, you're practicing the skill, and then you're teaching someone else how to do the skill. You are then absolutely locking in that skill into your brain, right? That is such a good way to remember how to do something. And you will, like, that knowledge, if you did that every single day, will compound to like you just being an absolute machine, okay? An absolute machine. And it doesn't have to be every day. It could be 2 to 3 times a week. But as we're going through this module, I want you to start thinking to yourself, what does my schedule look like right now in my personal life? How much time could I realistically dedicate towards building a personal brand in this space? And that's something that I really want you to think about. Now, I have a quote up here: short, digestible, snack-sized lessons outperform long tutorials. And I had this principle for about 2 years. And my personal belief is that if you want to build a personal brand, I think strong connections come from long-form content, if I'm being honest. The connection that we are building right now through you watching some of my long form pieces of education and, the relationship that we are building is, you're starting to understand who I am as a person, what drives me, what motivates me, my passions, and you can see that as I'm talking to you, right? And I think that creating bite-sized content is a really great way to get seen and to get noticed, but you do need to add into your strategy long-form content. I think if you're trying to get eyes on your personal brand and you're trying to get some kind of recognition, then you do need to create short-form content. 1, because it's the easiest to create, so it'll be the quickest for you to do. And 2, short-form platforms have a much easier and higher success rate of you actually reaching a larger audience than long form. Long form is a really difficult format to get your head around if you've never done content before. So I would start off with short form, right? Start creating short tutorials, start building up a bit of trust within your community, and also strangers who will then see this content suggested to them on their For You pages. And you will, if you make 20 videos educating people on creative AI, you can send those videos to me, I'll give you critical feedback, and we can go through rounds of iterations until you're creating masterful pieces of content that are going to attract the right clients for you. Okay, so my theory that I have here is consume content, right? So it could be in GenHQ, could be on social media, compress that knowledge into a short bite-sized piece of education, and then communicate it to an audience. Learning all of these skills and consuming the correct content, compressing information down into bite-sized pieces of education, and also practicing your communication skills are incredible skills that you can learn moving forward into this space. Especially, communication and human touch and human connection is something that is going to become so valuable in the future, especially as AI influencers are on the rise. AI content is on the rise. We need to be able to distinguish ourselves. So having a hybrid of human connection and AI will always, 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 always win. Okay? So we need to make sure that we are practicing each of these skills. Question for you to ask yourself. What's one skill you're learning right now that others would benefit from in 30 seconds or less? All right? Something that you've learned in the last couple of days in GenHQ. Maybe it's another social media video that you've seen in this space. When you're building your own personal brand, it's also really, really important to understand who is your audience, okay? So I kind of recommend avoiding niche paralysis, and I'll explain what I mean by that in just a moment. Says here also, clarity beats complexity. And I think this is also really important. So let's kind of, break both of these down. So, to avoid niche paralysis, what do I mean by this? When you first get started, you want to make sure that you're not targeting or niching yourself down too much. I'm going to go from my own experience here. When I created my first video on Photoshop education, my first video that I ever made was how to make thumbnails for YouTube, right? The little cover pictures that you see on each YouTube video. It was a very niche skill, right, in Photoshop. When you consider Photoshop, there's so much broader skills that somebody might want to learn. For example, how to add shadows in Photoshop, or how to adjust lighting on your images in Photoshop. These are very broad skills that everyone wants to learn when they start learning how to use Photoshop, okay? So do not niche yourself down. Do not be like, here's how you can take FPV footage of drones and add in, and bring this into Runway Aleph to adjust your videos, because you're niching yourself down to FPV drone pilots who create content with FPV drones. When you first start, you want to be keeping that funnel, right, as broad as possible. You want to be right at the top of the funnel up here. So you want to be creating and talking about topics that are complete top of funnel, okay? So for example, in the AI industry, it might be how to put clothing on models, right? A very basic skill that everyone wants to know. How to generate images of multiple poses of one person. How to create consistent characters. How to change the background of your images. How to turn images into videos. How to create product transitions, right? Think of all of these like really broad topics that everyone would want to know the answer to, right? A bad example of this is me recently. I made a video super recently for a company called LTX Studio, which was a branded piece of content on my Instagram, and I'm going to show it on the side here. And you can see this was a video that was specifically tailored towards how to create food transition videos. This is a bad example from me because, first of all, I was given that brief from the client. I didn't have a choice, right? That's what they wanted me to make a video on. But, if I had it my way, I would have created a much broader, topic to talk about because I could have done a transition video in something that was a lot more topical, like the iPhone, for example, like the new iPhone. You always have to be avoiding like niche paralysis and think to yourself as you're creating content, what topic can I talk about that's going to attract the most amount of conversation from the most amount of people, okay? And that's how you're going to start building your audience. And that's a really important thing to consider. So another thing that I bear in mind when I'm creating every single piece of content is when you are talking about topics, you have to picture your either a sibling or a parent who knows nothing about AI is watching this video. If they watch this video, would they have any hecking clue what you're talking about, what's happening, what's going on? Can a 6-year-old understand what I'm saying? Now, this is a strategy that Mr. Beast uses, right? The largest YouTube creator, the most subscribed YouTube creator on the planet, okay? And he teaches the principle that the verbiage and the language that he uses in his videos, a 6-year-old should be able to understand them. And that doesn't mean that you are then going to attract 6-year-olds to watching your videos. All it means is that potentially someone who is maybe not as educated as yourself, maybe someone doesn't speak the same language as you, they're going to be able to understand what you're saying because you're not using fancy technical terms. Okay, if I was talking about how to create character consistency, okay, as a general topic for a social media video or a piece of content that I wanted to put out there to build my personal brand, I'm not going to start my video by saying, here's how you can create custom LoRa's, because that is a technical term that only a very niche amount of people actually know what that means. Instead, I would probably say something, here's how you can create consistent characters using AI. One technique, or maybe I'd be like, there's 3 techniques that you can do this. One of them is called creating a custom LoRa. LoRa means and explaining that so that a person who just watches this video for the first time understands what they're watching. You can't go straight into the deep end with technical terminology because it's only going to switch people off. They're only going to scroll away from your videos. You need to make sure that you're not niching yourself down as much as you possibly can. Keep things broad, keep things generic, and make things that people want to know about, the mainstream masses. That's how you're going to attract the most amount of people towards your content. When I was doing Photoshop education, when I made my first video that kind of blew up, it got like 200,000 views on Instagram. That was like my kind of holy crap moment, right? Was, I believe, a video on how to add shadows in Photoshop. And I remember doing it, and I did a terrible job in the video. I added in the shadows really badly, and the video got a ton of hate, and I didn't do a great job, right? But from that video, I had a lot of people who were like, you did a great job. This is exactly what I wanted to learn. Thank you so much for sharing this, right? And I think a lot of people are scared to put themselves out there, and I think that's totally fine. I was too, right? And there were moments when I was doing Photoshop education and people were, taking the piss out of me because I did a shadow wrong in Photoshop, right? Where I had to go on a walk with my wife and be like, I was really sad because I was like, I'm just trying to help people. People are being mean. How do I deal with this? Building a personal brand isn't easy, right? And I think putting yourself out there isn't easy. And I've definitely had like days where I've been like really sad and a comment will, make me sad. But what it does over time is it thickens your skin, okay? You realize, okay, if I'm making a video, 2 videos a week, a video every day, whatever target you've set yourself, this is just a piece, right, of the puzzle. Like this video is just one video out of 50 or 100 or 356 videos that I'm going to make this year. So I'm not going to let that comment get me down because one video doesn't define me, right? My entire portfolio defines me. So that's really, really important to remember too. Do not let the performance of your last video hinder the way that you think about your personal brand. Your personal brand is a collection of everything that you've made. It's your entire portfolio. It's your entire collection of videos that you've, educated and spoken about. And, maybe you're not educating, but you're showing off your work that you've done, right? And I think shouting about your work is really, really important, if not just as important as the actual work itself, because that's also how you're going to find clients too. Break it down so that 6-year-olds can understand what you're talking about. Keep your words clear, concise, keep your scripts as snappy as you can so that you're creating bite-sized content. Simplicity creates connection, jargon creates distance. It's only going to separate the viewer from you if you actually start throwing in complex words, and you think to yourself, as you're doing that script and you're talking to the camera, or maybe you're talking about this project that you've worked on, you don't want to lose people early on in the video. Maybe start using the technical stuff later on in the video. At the start, you don't want to lose people. You want people to invest in what you're talking about, and you want them to invest in you, okay? So don't scare people away with complexity and jargon. Keep things simple. So next up, another really important lesson, right? Tone and voice are discovered through repetition and not planning. You cannot plan for how your personal brand is going to come out. I'm going to be honest, right? It comes from putting in the reps. So a little bit of context for those of you who don't know, I posted every single day on social media to build my personal brand that I have right now, every single day for 420 days. Right now, I'm on post maybe like 500 and something. I don't know what I'm on right now, but I posted every day for 420 days without missing a single day, sometimes uploading multiple times a day. And I said to myself, I'm going to do this every day for a year, and I'm just going to sacrifice 1 year of my life, okay? And at that point, when I signed myself up to doing that, I knew that at the end of that year, I would be able to look back on it and say, I gave that bloody everything that I've got. I threw everything that I had at this opportunity, and if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. But let me tell you right now, like the space that we're in, this is one of the biggest opportunities you're ever going to have in your life to capitalize on a new market. These opportunities do not come around every day, and you're in the right place to start learning and capitalizing on this right now. And I cannot stress the importance of this enough. You can just go about your day to day and you could walk away and not, start implementing a lot of these strategies. But if you do that, you're only doing yourself a disservice. I don't need to be telling you this stuff about personal branding. I could be making a module about a specific tool right now and a new update. But I'm prioritizing this because I cannot stress enough how important this is for the future. I cannot stress this enough. So your tone and your voice will come through repetitions. So let's come back to this. It took me about 150 videos of making content every single day until I actually even remotely started to find my own voice on social media. And let me say this too. When you create your personal brand, I 100% think that you are putting on a persona or a character. And I think anyone else who tells you otherwise is lying to you. Anyone who has a personal brand when the camera turns on is going to be slightly different to the version of themselves that you see if you interacted with them off camera. If you meet me off camera, I share the same level of passion that I have that I'm talking to you right now. But, I'm not going to be like overly analyzing in my head what I'm saying in terms of trying to deliver messages as clearly, as concisely as I possibly can, because I'm not on camera. And I know that this isn't being, educated to the masses. So every time the camera turns on, someone's personality is changing ever so slightly. People can be authentic, right? And this quote here, authenticity grows with consistency, not perfection. You can try to be perfect and try to be this perfect version of yourself. And God, I tried to be that version. I tried, before even setting up this page, I did social media 5 years ago and grew a page to 1 million followers, doing something completely different in a totally different industry, in a totally different niche, right? I tried to be perfect on that page and it absolutely drained the life out of me, right? And I just realized that I hated showing up to work every day. And with building a personal brand, you're really building an extension of yourself. So trying to be authentic will come in time, I can guarantee you. But when you first start, you do have to put on a bit of a brave face and a bit of a different personality, a slightly more confident version of yourself. And that's okay. Some people who know you might see through that, right? I actually got a message from one of my friends saying, it's like a female friend who was like, it's so cute to see you on camera because I see how confident you are on camera, but in person you're so shy. And I was like, first of all, that's a wild thing to say to someone. I was like, I don't know, should I be offended by this? But the truth is I've never considered myself a shy person. If we ever see each other in person, I think, you will be able to establish a really solid relationship. I'm not shy whatsoever. I think that there's definitely a confident persona that you do have to put on when the camera goes on and you're trying to build that personal brand. Over time, maybe that declines, but to begin with, you're finding your voice. It takes time. Don't be too hard on yourself. What's more important is that you get that piece of content out. Do not sit on content. Do not wait for the perfect moment. Do not sit there and have pieces of content that you're halfway through building and you're contemplating whether or not to finish it because you're not super happy about it. Make that piece of content. Don't be a perfectionist and post it and get it out there. As I've said in the past, start before you're ready. Start posting as soon as you can. Even if a video is not perfect, do not focus on perfection, just get the video out, right? So many people don't want perfection anymore. It also comes down to a point where we're moving into a world where quality and quantity are just as important as each other, right? We need to learn how to create quality content at high scales. This has always been the case, but it's now becoming more important than ever. So we need to figure out how can we create consistent content at high quality. If you are posting content, right, and it's low quality, I would much rather you are posting content that is low quality at a higher frequency, because you're going to learn so much more from posting that work publicly and seeing, throwing spaghetti at the wall and being like, okay, that video didn't perform well. I wonder why. Next day, I'm going to go and make a new video, post that. That video performed slightly better. Why did that perform better? And think about the data. We're going to come on to this later on. But that's really, really important. I'd much rather you're creating lower quality, getting out that high quantity, because quality you can teach in time. Quantity, you cannot. You need to get into rhythms and consistency. And we're going to come on to that too. Questions to ask yourself. If you had to describe your voice in 3 words, what would they be? Does your current tone reflect who you are or who you think you should be? if you think about like who you should be in this space, you want to come across as authoritative. You want to come across as though you know what you're talking about. You want to come across as well educated, and you want to come across like a professional, right? Because we're all creative professionals here. I have an ethos in my videos when I record on social media, and this is like a small 1% of something that you've probably never noticed before, but I pay attention to because I try, after doing so many repetitions of this, and I think to myself, how can I improve? I try and do this small technique that helps me, which is in my videos, I will record over and over and over and over and over until I get the perfect take, right? No cuts. So I will sit down and I will go like this. Here's how you can create consistent characters using AI. Step 1, go to LTX Studio. Now you can take a photo of yourself and drag and drop it into this platform, right? And I will start with this, talking over my video, and I will continue to go all the way to the end until I say, and if you want to try this for yourself, type AI in the comments and I'll send you the link, right? And over time, I start from the very start, from here's how you can, and I finish on my call to action at the end of my video, and I will make sure that I have no cuts, there are no ums, no no buts, or like anything like that. I will make sure that it is one clean take. Why do I do this? Because I believe that if I'm posting something out there and there is no cuts, no ums or that makes me sound confident. The truth is that it took me 40, 50 takes to get there. But that tone and setting that tone helps you, set that precedent for yourself as a professional. So it helps you become more trusted. That is a huge tip that I would give you. If you sit down to create educational content, keep recording until you get that perfect take. It may take you half an hour to get that perfect take, but when you practice this over time, it becomes easier and easier, and it will help you with your communication skills too. Next up is one of my favorites, visual identity and recognition. Now, this is a really, really important one for building a personal brand, right? When you think of Rourke or Rourke Heath, probably one of the first two things that come to mind is hats and hair. Okay. In all of my videos, right, you can see I wear hats and hair. It's very rare that I'm not wearing a hat. Some videos I don't, but usually, especially on all my social videos, I wear hats and I've got long hair. This isn't by mistake. This is directly on purpose. Okay. So when I first started, I did not wear hats and I did not have long hair. My cousin, who actually encouraged me to start my personal brand, he had long hair. And I remember working at the creative agency that I worked at in London, and my boss, the CEO of the company, I told my boss that my cousin was this person who did UX UI education, and he had like a big social media following, and he said, "Oh, no way, is it that guy Xander Whitehurst, who is my cousin, but he didn't say his name. He said, "No way, is that the guy who has long hair?" My cousin obviously has nice long hair as well. And I went, "Yeah, it is." And that moment stuck with me because I realized that people didn't know him, necessarily by name, but they knew him from visual recognition. Additionally, in all of my cousin's videos, he always ends his videos with a mantra, right? And he says he actually starts the videos and he goes, here's how you can learn how to create carousels in Figma super fast. And he says the word super fast, right? And that is his verbal mantra. And he says that in every video. So my boss was like, "Is that the guy with long hair who always says super fast?" And so I was like, that's two things that, somebody has done to build up a personal brand of recognition. And that's really, really important too. So I thought to myself, what could I do to, create some kind of recognition for myself? And when I first started, I actually used to say, "Let's go," as my verbal mantra. So I'd be like, "Here's how you can create YouTube thumbnails. Let's go." But I realized pretty quickly that it didn't resonate with me. And if it doesn't resonate with you, then it's probably not going to resonate with someone else either. So I decided to drop that, and I was like, okay, well, what could I do? And I actually just decided to grow out my hair because I thought, well, what can I do to separate myself that's going to make me look more unique and slightly different to the average person? Well, usually your average Joe has probably got shorter hair, and as we get older, no hair at all. So I was like, okay, how can I separate? And obviously nothing wrong with that for any bald people watching. But, I thought to myself, how could I separate myself? What could I do to make myself different, right? So I just thought growing my hair out, wearing hats would be things that I could easily do to, try and stand out a little bit. And I also would wear the same clothes. And you'll notice in a lot of my videos, I wear very similar clothing. I have 17 of these white Uniqlo t-shirts. So I wear them in pretty much all my videos because I just think people see the clothes, they see the person, they immediately know who it is. They then associate me with my brand and my quality and my quantity and my trust. And they, it's ridiculous that like the level of degree that you can go into to try and build visual recognition. And I've worked really hard at it over the years to try and, build up some kind of personal brand around it. I used to wear this Patagonia beige gilet, and I wore it nearly every single day in all of my videos for like 150 days straight. So that literally, every video I was wearing the same clothes: white t-shirt, Uniqlo t-shirt, white, beige Patagonia vest. And if you look through my videos, I'm often wearing it in a lot of my videos to this day, right? So you look, even in this thumbnail picture right here, white Uniqlo t-shirt, so it's. And I wear the same like Vans hats. I wear Vans hats. I have purposefully made these decisions. They're important decisions for me. There was one day where I wore this black hat for the first time and somebody commented, and it was the most liked comment on the video, "New hat unlocked," right? So people will pay attention to these things. And that's an important thing to notice too. Small details can become your brand symbol, right? I could probably create a logo, based around just like a face outline with long hair and a hat, and people would probably know who it is. Usually when people are describing me and they're trying to figure out who I am, they'll say to a friend, the guy with like medium long or like long brown hair who wears a hat in all of his videos who talks about AI. There's not many people out there, who do that, right? So it's pretty easy to figure out who that is. So I guess for you, what visual element could make someone stop scrolling and say, I know this creator? You don't have to start putting on makeup. You don't have to start doing anything that's going to start like, be too crazy, but just like think about it. Is it your background? Like I have a friend, Sebastian Jeffries, who is another social media creator, and I'll throw up like his profile here. So you can see on the side, Sebastian, his background, right? You can see in all of these different videos, they're all, it's the same background. It's the same very visually stimulating background. And that is on purpose. It's to build up like a visual representation. For me, my background used to be my studio in my office space. And I, recorded like 300 videos in that office space. And I had this like wooden paneling behind me. And again, that was intentional. It was all intentional to try and build up a bit of brand recognition. Another thing that I did was on social media, I literally started by, I was like, how else can I set myself apart? And I started, if you've ever watched one of my videos, you'll know when I'm talking at the bottom, I use After Effects to cut myself out into this little square here, like this, with my head just poking up out the top. Right, with my hat poking up out the top. And this, again, was intentional. It was to set myself apart visually, to start building up brand recognition. And other people have caught on, and they're also doing it to try and, separate themselves too. But I saw someone else doing it in a completely different niche, and I was like, that looked cool in a video. I'm now going to do this every single day, and I'm going to make this part of my brand recognition. And, that's just the way things go. And that is now a huge part of my brand. So, and, it's a fundamental, something that I do in every video. Now let's talk about consistency, okay? And discipline, because this is really important. And also holding yourself accountable. So quote unquote, locking in for 1 year can change everything, even if it means sacrifice. And I'm going to highlight this here because I truly think that it's actually, sacrifice is probably one of the most important things to kind of discuss here. So let's begin with locking in. 2 years ago, I decided to lock in for a year. Maybe you have lots of commitments going on in your personal life. So you need to ask yourself, what are my commitment levels? What do I have going on in my personal life? You know, am I looking after my parents? Do I have kids? Do I have evening activities, after work activities, right? How much time do you truly have? And what goals can you set yourself to hold yourself accountable to? Okay. Regardless of having a 9-to-5 job, I still posted every single day for a year while having a 9-to-5 job. I didn't quit that job until I was like 400 days in, and eventually I quit that job to pursue this full time. And, you know, if I did it, right, and I worked late hours, I'm going to be honest, right, I was in a very privileged position where I didn't need to, I didn't have kids, right? I didn't have many external things to focus on. I sacrificed a huge part of my social life. I'm 26 years old. I sacrificed, being 24 years old, and I literally barely saw anyone. I truly barely saw anyone. I would go on holiday with my family, and I would come home halfway through a day trip on a ski trip, for example, to make a video, because a video had to go out the next day, right? And I held myself accountable to that. And that brings discipline. And creative discipline is something that's going to be super important moving into the future too. Like I cannot express this enough, because the amount of volume of content that we're going to have to build in the future is going to be so staggeringly high, and so much higher than we are producing right now. It's going to require an immense amount of discipline, long hours, and hard work to actually set yourself apart. So locking in for a year and setting yourself goals of like, okay, I'm going to create X amount of spec ads in a week, and I'm then going to create X amount of videos talking about those spec ads and teaching people how I made those ads, for example. Or I'm going to learn a skill like how to use Kling 2.1 first and last frame, and I'm going to teach other people how to do that on my LinkedIn. And I'm going to learn a skill every day, and I'm going to teach people how to do it. And that way, when a client comes to me and they're considering working with me or the next person, they're going to pick me because I'm an educator in this space. I hope that nugget will stick with you, because the only reason I am here right now talking to you is because my cousin said that to me 2 years ago. And it's not too late. It's not too late. We're so early in this space right now. Start creating educational content. Start teaching people how to do these skills. Learn something new from inside this community and teach people. It's very simple. I promise you, if you did this every single day for a year, you can turn around and you can look me in the eye, and you'll be able to tell me that your life has completely changed. Completely, right? It may be unreasonable to ask for 365 days, but set yourself an ambitious target. Set yourself something that's going to really push you, that's going to require discipline and accountability, right? So 30 days, 90 days, 365 days. Pick one. Easy, medium, or hard. Pick one right now and try and hold yourself accountable to something. Even if you posted it inside GenHQ, right? You could post the video inside GenHQ. You could post the video on LinkedIn. You could, we're going to come on to this, but, I think just start now. It's really, really important. So this kind of all comes back to this resonating message of building authority through education. Building a personal brand honestly comes from either producing like excellent work, right? Picture some of the top artists in the world. They build a personal brand, whether it's a music artist or an actual like painter, whatever kind of art medium you want to clarify here. Pick one. These people either have a personal brand because they're incredible at what they do, they get a lot of PR attention around it, or they've made it for themselves. And I have made mine for myself. You can do it too. Yours doesn't have to be the same size that mine is in order to make the same amount of money that I do. All you need is that one client. One client can come along on a random Tuesday or a random Sunday and completely change your life. And you never know who's watching your content. You never know, no matter how big or small. Some of the biggest people would rather work with you if you have like a really tight-knit, small personal brand that's strong, that has like 5,000 followers on LinkedIn, for example. So many companies would prefer to work with that, for example, over maybe someone who has like a massive personal brand. I think that having a massive personal brand sets you apart and will make you way more attractive to bigger companies. But some companies might really like the fact that you have this small personal brand that's really, really awesome and active, right? So build authority with education. Educators become the trusted experts of tomorrow's industry. Pay attention to this, please. Educators become the trusted experts of tomorrow's industry. Teaching positions you as an authority faster than any title. It's similar to the quote that we had at the start of this project, at the start of this module. Share what's new, simplify it, and contextualize it. If you can figure out how to teach people, you're just going to go a long way in general. Like, it's a fundamental thing of life. It's a fundamental thing of business. Being a manager, being a leading figure, being someone that people turn to. It's not about being authoritative in terms of like, I am a leader, right? No. The best leaders don't shout from the hilltops. The best leaders lead by example, and the best leaders will be able to convey complex things and break them down to each individual person. Everyone, learns in different ways, okay? So being able to create education where everyone can if you can create education that a lot of people understand, my God, you've got so much leverage in this industry. So much. So how can you teach others about AI tools or workflows in a way that's simple but powerful? Start thinking about this. As I mentioned before, we kind of have this topic of authority and approachability, right? People follow experts, but they connect with humans. So let your personality shine, even if it's quirky or unpolished. As I mentioned before, it may take a long time for you to get there, but when you get to that point, you'll be able to start having your personality shine through. Someone like RPN, Roberto, he'll be teaching you about AI, but by the end of the video, he's talking to you about his favorite football team. And here's how he does it. He'll start off the video with a really interesting hook to grab your attention. The visuals will be great. What he's saying will be great. The music will be great. The sound effects will be great. All of those key elements will be playing into his videos. By the end of the video, he's told a story arc. He's told a narrative about maybe a new AI tool or a new AI trend that's happened. And by the way, make sure you follow Roberto. He's a really great creator. His @ is right here. By the end of the video, he will have kind of like given you the value that you need, and he'll just chip in with like he'll be like, anyway, I'm heading out now. The Dodgers are playing, right? The Dodgers are about to beat the 69ers or whatever it is. Okay. And he'll like, I don't know. Like, I don't know anything about American sports, but he'll just like throw something in about like his favorite, team. And that's like such a great way to connect, because then you learn a little bit about him. Maybe you resonate and you're like, hey, I'm not a Dodgers fan. I'm a, 49ers fan or whatever it is. Right. I think I'm referencing baseball and American football here. To be honest, I don't know. But the truth is that vulnerability, humility build deeper and, loyalty with your audience. So you don't have to go out there humiliating yourself. Do not, purposefully do that. No one wants to do that. It might happen time to time, but that is all character building stuff. And it's tough. I'm not going to lie, it's hard. But nothing that's good comes easy. The best things in life are really hard to attain, because no one else is doing them, and if you start putting yourself out there and you start building your personal brand, you're 10 steps ahead of the next person who's trying to get the job that you want. You're 10 steps ahead of the next person who also wants to get the same piece of commissioned work that you want, right? You have to start somewhere. You have to build. You have to not become famous, but become found, okay? Show the process, not the polished result, right? What we do in our videos is we will show the polished result at the start of the video, and then we'll show the process. And that is a formula that works really well for us. So in my videos, we will show people how we created a certain effect. We'll show people the final beautiful visual that we created using AI tools, and we'll showcase multiple examples of it. Not just one, but like 3. Right? And then after that, we'll show them exactly the process of how to do it. So we'll hook them in. They'll see these visuals, and I will tell them as well as they're watching these visuals, here's how you can do this. When you're making videos, especially educational ones, don't say, here's how I made this. Always say you, because when people are watching videos on social media, they don't give a toss about you, right? To put it frankly, they don't care about you. Everyone cares about themselves. We live in a very selfish world where people want to learn, about themselves. And when you can start giving back to other people, they'll respect you, right? But you have to use the word you and not I, and that will play a big role. And you'll notice in all of my videos, I'll say, here's how you can do this. Here's how you can right? You. Whenever you are thinking of saying the word I, say you. So I want to talk about my personal experience here. So obviously I started out doing Photoshop education, and now I'm working in artificial intelligence. And as we're going through this module, I'm using a few storytelling techniques, right? I'm explaining to you about my life, my experiences. And so I've kind of gone on this journey from Photoshop, right, to AI, to storytelling, to this moment right now. You know, what you're watching, what you're looking at, which is literally me right now, kind of giving you all of this information. And all of this is possible because of the personal brand that I've built. If I didn't have a social presence online, none of you would know who I am. And that's okay, right? But the truth is that building a personal brand has opened the doors to all of my business opportunities. I don't do any outbound reach for any of the work that I take on, and that gives me a huge amount of flexibility and freedom. Every piece of work that I end up doing is inbound, which is incredible. We get inbounds from some of the craziest people on the planet, and it's all because of the personal brand that I've built. And again, like I said, you never know who's watching your videos. We've worked with probably, we're still under NDA and can't specifically say who it is, but top 3 most famous people in the world. Like, there's people that, I've been able to work on projects with them just because of my personal brand. And it makes no sense that these people have reached out to, Rourke, someone who grew up just outside London. Like, it makes no sense. But the only reason why all of this is possible is because of personal brand, is what I'm trying to get at. You know, when you build a personal brand, you actually open up the door to pivot. Okay, now don't get me wrong, you can't pivot from creating content about AI to then going and talking about sewing or rug tufting, for example. You can't go into a completely random niche after that. But you can pivot from talking about AI to then talking about robotics, to then talking about, world building, right? You can go into similar areas. So I went from Photoshop to AI. They're both in tech. They're both in creative fields, and I really doubled down on this industry. And for me, it made sense to move from Photoshop to AI, especially as generative fill started to come into Photoshop, which is an AI tool. I would make videos on it, and I noticed on social media that people were really interested in it. So I naturally pivoted over to AI. For me, it was a very natural progression. But when you build a personal brand, right? And also, can I just say, if you're building a personal brand today and you're starting from scratch, name the personal brand after yourself, right? Cannot stress this enough. Do not name it like Productions, okay? Call it like Rourke Heath, or obviously don't call it that because that's my name, but like, my name is Rourke Sefton Minns. That's my real government name, okay? But Rourke Heath was, just a name that I made up. I live in London right next to a park called Hampstead Heath, and, so I picked the name Rourke Heath. I think building a personal brand around your name is really, 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 really important. So if you are building a personal brand, build it around yourself, because it will give you the possibility to pivot. You can build like a business brand and a business page, but we're not talking about that. I'm talking about building a personal brand, because that should always be different to your business page. Let's say you end up moving into a new career in a new industry, then having a strong personal brand will give you so much flexibility and freedom to move between any job that you could possibly want between similar sectors, I promise you. So you want to build a bridge between what you're known for and where you're going next. So I made a post recently into the school community that, the next big thing after AI, image and video runs its course, is probably world building and creating digital worlds. Now, I tested this on my social platform, and I know that this is coming. I know that if I have my finger on the pulse, I think that this is going to be the next big thing, okay? Creating advertisements that will then need to go in these, futuristic worlds, when we can upload an image and turn it into an endless experience of just being able to move through a world, open doors and walk through them. And there'll be fully furnished rooms inside of this image that we've just uploaded, right? When we can create infinite realities, and then they'll become more popular realities that you'll be able to log into, like digitally and through VR, right? This is the future that I think that we're going to be moving into. They'll be like, oh, you're creating an advert. Is it for the real world or is it for, the multiverse, multiverse.com or meta.com or fucking google.com, right? They'll all have their own worlds that you'll be able to interact in, and they'll all call them something else. This is my prediction, right? There'll be ads inside those worlds. There'll be experiences inside those worlds that you won't be able to get anywhere else in the real world. And it's going to attract a lot of people. It's sad, but it's true. It's exciting in lots of ways, but also, I do see that this is the general direction that the world is headed in. I just do. So I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but what I'm bringing this back to is I made a video about world building and I posted this on social media to test out to the market to see how much are people interested in this. The video has nearly got over 1 million views on Instagram, and it's got well over 1 million views across multiple platforms. And I'll show you the video on the side here, right? It's a really, really interesting video that shows how you can put yourself into these, futuristic worlds, how you can create digital worlds and then insert yourself into them using AI. And we are moving closer and closer towards this. So I tested it out. The market performed really well. I now know that because I have a personal brand and I tested this and I floated this idea out to the market, I now have this data, which I can then use in the back of my head to figure out what is going to become the next big thing. Having a personal brand gives you leverage as well, and it allows you to adapt and evolve. Now let's talk about platform strategy, distribution, and all things of the sort. You want to post your content everywhere. You never know what platform it'll explode on. Sometimes I posted videos on Instagram and I would upload it to TikTok at the same time. The video would blow up on TikTok, but it would do absolutely crap on Instagram. Makes no sense. Makes no sense whatsoever. But usually you will see a correlation. If a video blows up on Instagram, the video will also blow up on TikTok. There is usually a very strong correlation. However, sometimes it doesn't go that way. So posting your videos on Instagram, Facebook, X, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, pick every platform that you can and throw it out there, okay? You never know where it's going to perform to begin with. Honestly, I would say YouTube, if you're doing short form content, is probably a bit of a waste of time, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. But X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, you will find leads, including LinkedIn as well. Obviously, optimize for formats. So if you're creating content, create all of your images and videos in this aspect ratio. Don't create videos in like a wide aspect ratio like this if you're posting onto like Instagram or Facebook, all of these platforms that accept vertical content. If you do, there are ways around it, but you need to format your videos. So like if you have a video in like this aspect ratio that you want to post on socials, then there's creative ways that you can go about it. So I'm going to show you one right now. So here is a video that I did for Samsung, and you can see this is a wide video that I actually repurposed and I turned into a piece of social content. How did I do it? I created this user interface of like a fake tweet, which is a very viral format, and this allows you to kind of add in a caption, add in your profile picture, and provide a bit of like brand authority. And I just designed that in Photoshop, right? So I made this in Photoshop. So I just made this as a PNG in Photoshop, and I just slapped in the text, added it onto my video. You can use it on a black background. You don't have to have a colored hue, like huey background like I do here. You could just use a plain background, and those videos will also perform well. And that's a really great way that you can repurpose content for vertical formats as well. When you are posting your videos, I need to emphasize the power of data and feedback. Look at your videos, look at what's performed well, and make educated guesses and decisions based on this data that you have available to you. Look at your last videos, see which videos performed. Make a note of why did this video perform? Maybe because the topic of what I was talking about was a viral topic in terms of it's really broad. So like, for example, like this one, this video of mine went viral. It's now over 1 million views. The 3D Worlds video went viral. So maybe this is an indication for me to go and make more videos on this topic and create more content on this. Once you find stuff that works, milk it for what it's worth so that you can grow your personal brand. It's really, really important. If you find formats that work for you, make a note of them and use them in your next videos, right? So Another example I'm going to show you here on social media, right? Take a look at this. This is a format, this 3-stack format that works really, really well. And it, often for me, it performs super well. I'll show you another example. This was a branded piece of content for Samsung. We've got the 3-stack video format. Again, you can see this is a format that works particularly well. So I always use this format. For me, it just always seems to work. This video here worked really well for me. It performed really well, showcasing this new tutorial of how to create this. So I tried to remake it again in a similar style, but the video didn't perform too well. So that's okay. Maybe the format isn't going to work again. I'll move on. But it's important to use formats that you've learned in the past and replicate them if they perform well. I also do this too, and this is a tip for you if you ever need help with making videos. When I'm on social media and I'm consuming content, which is a really important part of what you do, I will save videos that I'm like, oh, that's interesting, or this is cool. I want to make a video in the same style, right? So I was inspired by this video to create one of my own ones. So I will save videos that I think are really interesting. So this one, I love this format. It's just an image here with Google Nano Banana and a video here with Kling 2.5. So I will then save these videos into a library, and I will I love this format. This guy has the video here, the pose transfer, and then the final output. So I will save videos if I'm that format of the video in terms of how it's structured visually looks really cool, like this one. I am going to remake this video, and I am going to make a video on this, and I'm going to use this as an idea because, if you see something that works, this video has clearly performed well for this person. I will also, go and create something similar. This person here has done this inspired me to go and make my own 3-stack format too, right? All of these things are important to kind of note down and make a recording of, because they'll help you in the future. When you see pieces of content in your niche that you think you could go and replicate, save them somewhere. And that's what I do. I just save them on Instagram, and you can save them on TikTok. You can save them on LinkedIn. There's loads of ways in which you can do it. Great creators don't copy, they refine existing ideas. So take these existing ideas, and also let me just say, I copied my way to about 100, for my first 150, actually let's say 100 videos. For 100 videos, I would find what other people had done and I would copy it and just try and make something that worked, okay? At that point, I had very little, interest in trying to do anything else other than get publicity and trying to get some kind of engagement around my content. After time of creating content, I realized that I could actually take these ideas and I could make them my own. It takes time to find your own voice, as we've already spoken about. So find formats that other people have done, remake them, but then, try and remake it in your own style. Use different images. Don't use the same images as them. And, but you could keep the script pretty similar. You could do all kinds of different things to try and, make it ever so slightly different. But just try to recreate what other people have done. It's a great way to learn. Really, really great. But the best creators will take these ideas and they will refine them and they will make them even better. Okay? And that's really important. Let's talk about monetization and opportunities. Reputation compounds faster than revenue. Focused on trust, not transactions. People buy from creators they believe in, not creators who just waffle and talk about a load of nonsense. You have to provide trust. And you do that by providing people with education, right? It's about showing up every single day. When I showed up every single day for Photoshop education for over a year, right, people trusted me. They believed in me. Adobe believed in me, right? They realized I was making videos about their product every single day for a year. How could they not notice me? I made it irrefusable for people to not trust me because I showed up every single day. You can't just make content and build your personal brand and then disappear for 2 months or a month or 2 weeks and then come back. It doesn't really work like that. Sure, you could go away for 2 weeks, possibly if you've already established yourself, take a breather if you need to. But the reality is that this is a treadmill. This is a long-term investment that will absolutely propel you in any part of your career. Your brand opened doors to sponsorships, digital products, courses, consulting, and all kinds of different partners. So for me, A lot of the work that I do is branded content through sponsorships. I obviously have a digital product, which is, this course and this education platform. I do consulting with, North Face, Vans, Timberlands, fashion brands, and we've got contracts to do consulting for other companies and different partners, right? I'm working with Jason Derulo, or we're trying to, close up a contract right now. There are so many different opportunities that come from building personal brands. But what's important when we talk about monetization is that engagement is always more valuable than earnings. So my strategy right now is that probably about 80% of the videos I post on socials right now are branded pieces of content. And obviously that's great for finances and for finance purposes. But branded content doesn't always make good content. When you're restricted to a brand, client brief, and this might be the same if you're making spec ads, right? When you make a spec advert, you have total creative freedom to create whatever the heck you want, to use whatever music you want, to, design whatever you want. And when you're making that piece of content, your goal should be to try and get as much visibility on this as possible. So when you have that creative freedom, you then open yourself up to create these like viral bangers, right? These big statement pieces, if you will call it that, where you're trying to capture as many people as possible. For us right now, with my personal brand, we have a lot of sponsored work that we have to do, but on contracts and obligations. But we also mix in 20%. 1 in 5 posts are a piece of content that we want to make a piece of content on, because we have to report about something that's happening in the news in terms of new updates coming out, or maybe we wanted to create a creative piece. And when we get that opportunity, we maximize that opportunity to try and get as much like virality as possible. Now, virality is not vanity, okay? It's not that I care about the followers, I care about the, and that kind of thing, and like feeling great about myself and being like, look, I got 1 million views on this video. It's not about that. It's about distribution. Now, distribution is one of the most important things moving into this new era that we're about to move into. If you can act as a distribution network for a lot of these companies too, they are going to pick you 10 times over working with someone who doesn't have a distribution network. So picture this, person A and person B. Client comes to you, right? And you are person A. You have a personal brand of 5,000 followers. Or they come to person B who has 1 million followers, who will also post about this piece of content after they've gone and made the advert, for example. They will then also go and post about this on their platform and get more coverage, right? Which is more marketing, more eyes on the brand, etc. Who are they going to pick? They're going to pick this person over here every single day of the week, right? So even if you have a small audience of 5,000, 10,000 of high value individuals, they're still going to rather work with you over someone who's got nothing. Personal brand is important no matter how big or small. And like PJ Ace is a really good example of this, because he creates AI ads, $100,000 plus per advert. He's got a team of people working on it, and after he's finished with the video, he will then share it on his X, on his LinkedIn, and some of them go absolutely viral, right? Get hundreds. Some of them have got like 80 million views or something ridiculous, right? So I just think that there's so much opportunity there to build your personal brand and also use it as a distribution network too. Now, I also have to mention this. You should value views and reach as much as money. They compound very differently, but right now, when you get to a point where you're okay financially, you're happy with what you're making, I am in a position right now, right, where I'm perfectly happy with what I make, and I've been perfectly happy with what I make for a long time, 6 months now. For me, it's never about the money anymore, and it's all about the impact that each of these pieces of content that I create can make. Whether it's a piece of content here in Gen HQ, I'm going to give it everything. Whether it's a piece of social content, I'm going to give it everything. Why? Because I want it to have the most amount of impact that it can possibly have. And in return, that will also lead to more money, right? But when you have like the impact, okay, so let's use myself as an example here. If I was like, okay, I could create a video today that is $15,000 brand deal for whatever company. So I could accept that contract with a random company for $15,000, for example, or I could go and make a video that I knew was going to go and get 1 million views and grow my personal brand. Right now, I'm going to go and pick that video that will get 1 million views and grow my personal brand, because the long-term value of growing your personal brand and getting more coverage will have so much more value in terms of like bringing in new opportunities than just accepting that one like pretty dangling carrot that's in front of you. Like, you have to look longer, further down the line. There may be a great opportunity that's right in front of you, but if you can go and make a piece of content that is, is going to perform well, and, maybe you post a video and it gets 200,000 views, you're going to get loads of people reaching out to you for client work. Okay. And that one video that you made could change your life. And I've had that opportunity happen recently with Jason Derulo, right? It's opened the door to a brand new opportunity that could potentially absolutely change my life. So there's so many opportunities that come from, growing views and reach, and you should focus on this more than the money. The money will come as a result of the views and reach. So, and the impact. Now, let's say the impact for GenHQ. If I put, it's like nearly 1 o'clock in the morning at the time that I'm recording this. If I was to put in less effort into this video and, delay this further, maybe record it half-assed on like a random Thursday. If I am to put a lot of effort into creating this piece of content and you can see the passion and the delivery, you're going to trust me a lot more. If I then make a post in GenHQ and I say, guys, like, you should join for GenHQ for a year, because to be honest, and I, give you my spiel as to why I think, GenHQ is worth investing for the next year, because we have our finger on the pulse. We know what's coming next. Sure, image and video is great right now, but the next big thing is going to be world building, and I'm always going to try and stay ahead. We work with all of the top creative AI companies. We get access to all the tools before anyone else. Creative advisor for a lot of these companies, X, Y, and Z. You're going to trust me because you're going to see all of those things, and you're also going to understand that I genuinely put everything into this and I care so deeply about it that it's going to build that relationship between us. And that's really, really important. So you can get that message across through personal brand building as well. I also just added this in here because I think it's really important that it's very easy to say yes to a lot of work that comes your way. But sometimes saying no to certain clients will give you a lot more leverage. You have to be selective with the clients that you work with. I think it's really, really important. And when I first started, I was accepting a lot of contracts that I shouldn't, okay? And I think that's okay. I think that when you first are getting started, you should accept, contracts that you shouldn't, because you learn. You learn a lot from those contracts in terms of, man, I don't want to do something like that again. Or maybe you learn, that was a really tough ask from the client. Maybe it was a really tough AI project that you had to work on, and you realize that maybe that's not for you. Maybe that industry, maybe you had to do a job for the automotive industry, and you learn that industry isn't for you, for example. I think saying yes to certain contracts when they come your way is important, but as you start growing your portfolio, you start growing your resume, you build from 5,000 to 10,000, 10,000 to 100,000 a month. When you start growing, saying no will actually give you so much more leverage. First of all, the client will respect you a lot more. If they say, look, the best we can do is 2,500, and you say, no, that's fine, thank you very much. They almost always come back, right? They must always come back, and they will want to work with you again. You can say, I'm really sorry, I'm just not accepting any projects under this price right now, but I look forward to hopefully working together if your budgets change, right? And when their budgets change and that company is starting to do better, they will come back to you. So sometimes saying no is really helpful with your personal brand as well. Now, we're nearly at the end of this presentation here, and there's two last things that I want to leave you with. The evolution of purpose. A personal brand is a lifelong reflection of who you are becoming and not who you are right now. With what you're teaching and what you're putting out there, you're showcasing this best version of yourself. And, this has always been the case on Instagram, people being like Instagram versus reality, where you see this really pretty hotel, but actually the reality is that there's mold growing in the corner. The truth is that our life isn't pretty, right? Our life is full of mold in the corner. There are so many things that go on in the background that make your life rough and It's not perfect, but that's what makes us human. And I think that like the stuff that you put out as your personal brand should be a version of you that you aspire to be to. And if you can like have any clarity in the content that you're putting out there, if you are putting on a little bit of a persona to be that confident version of yourself, then at least know and seek solace in, you know, the content that you post on social media or publicly is a version of you that you at least want to become. Because I was in a position where I was posting content of a person that I didn't want to be. And that was not a nice feeling. But since I started doing this, I see the person that I am online and I aspire to be that person, truly. And again, it makes me emotional because, you know, I put so much of myself online, and I, in my personal life, have a lot of, you know, growing to do, and in my career. But I think that the version of yourself that you put out publicly should always be a version of yourself that you aspire to be to. And if you ever get lost in terms of what you're making, I think remember that, and that will hopefully help guide you and give you just a bit of a North Star. Early in your early stage of growing your personal brand, a lot of it is learning, right? You're learning what is important. You're learning how to do these skills. The mid stage is teaching. You're then teaching these skills. All of you have been in this category. You might still be in this category. All of you are ready for this stage now. I don't care if you signed up to GenHQ yesterday and you've never learned anything about AI. You can start teaching right now. Start before you're ready. Start learning a new skill and start teaching people and building your personal brand. After time, you will learn how you can scale the impact that you've made, right? You may all of a sudden now have 5,000 people on LinkedIn. You might start a newsletter. You might start, using that newsletter to build up a bit of an audience and then start selling something to the people in the newsletter. Building your personal brand gives you a lot of extra ways and extra opportunities to make money. When I was building my personal brand while also having my 9-to-5 job, I was earning like $3,000 a month at the creative agency in London. And then I was eventually also earning $3,000 a month doing my social media, my personal brand stuff. And I was doing both of those at the same time, and I had doubled my income as a result. And, I just think there's endless possibilities with this. So your why will evolve as you do, as you learn, right? As you teach, and as you scale your impact. Your why, in terms of everything that we've discussed inside of this module, will change as you do. So I ask you this question. What's the next chapter for your personal brand, and what purpose drives it today? Lastly, some closing thoughts it's this word freedom. It's truly like the freedom that it gives you by having a personal brand is just truly spectacular. I really do think it's an absolute game changer. And I hope that you guys take away some of the teachings, because a lot of this stuff that I've taught over the last, hour and a half of this recording is stuff that's from my own personal experience. And I can teach you tools. I could teach you, how to use these tools. But to be honest, it's useless unless you can market yourself properly. As we move into this new digital world, being able to market yourself, and if you've made it to the end of this video, then you are also clearly in a position where you want to start marketing yourself better. And I think that building your personal brand is the perfect way to start. If you need any help along the way, you can reach out to me directly in GenHQ. As I always mention, you can have one-to-one mentoring with me inside of the DMs inside of school. Ask me anything you need. I will provide you with as much feedback as you want. My recommendation would be to message me and say, Rourke, I'm now taking accountability. I am going to start posting every single day for 30 days. That's the easy one. Rourke, I'm going to start posting every day for 90 days. Rourke, I'm going to start posting every day for 365 days. Come back to me after those 30 days. Come back to me after those 60 days. Hold yourself accountable. If you come back to me in 365 days and you've made an educational piece of content every single day on creative AI, I can guarantee you that you'll be making at least 6 figures. At least 6 figures. Some of you 6 figures, even a month. It is the most life-changing thing that you can do. If you're looking to build a personal brand, it's incredible. And it's this message that this mantra that I have been teaching throughout this module. It's not about being famous, it's about being found. if you can get found by the right people and you can, be found by the right clients,